Hello and good afternoon. Welcome to Lightning Session number 2. We have an exciting panel that's coming up for you. So we're going to get started in just a moment, but we have 6 panelists that are going to present their work this afternoon. So please
Good
tune in
afternoon.
because you're in for a treat. So our first panelist is going to be Ms. Naya Parson Hudson, who is a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University.
Thank you and good afternoon. I am honored to have participated in the Social Work Data Science Initiative this past summer and to have had Dr. Kenya Jones as my mentor. My name is Naya Parson Hudson, and I'm a graduate student in the Whitney M. Young School of Social Work at Clark Atlanta University. I am presenting my summer research project, a look at the impact of the HIV/AIDS epidemic on Black women living in Georgia. I selected the topic because the HIV/AIDS epidemic is in fact not over, and it disproportionately affects the African American community, especially Black women living in Georgia. Next, please keep it on this slide. The CDC reports that in 2019, Black people made up 13% of the US population, but accounted for 42% of new HIV diagnoses in the United States. Simply put, the virus affects us greater than any other race or ethnicity, and Black women are 14 times more likely to be diagnosed with HIV than their white counterparts. Next slide, please. The national landscape related to HIV/AIDS in Black women led me to want to research what was happening in our state. My curiosity led me to also inquire about the roles of race, socioeconomic status, and geography. Next slide, please. After a review of the literature, certain themes emerged related to social determinants of health. For example, let's look at healthcare and socioeconomic status. A 2022 report found that Georgia offers free and unrestricted access to HIV services for all HIV-infected individuals. However, the stigma related to being HIV positive was a barrier to service utilization. Also, there's a wide amount of research linking socioeconomic status. The American Psychological Association reports that a person's socioeconomic standing may affect their likelihood of contracting HIV and developing AIDS, and it is a key factor in determining the quality of life for the individual after they have been infected by the virus. Next slide, please. While significant research exists on the prevalence of HIV and AIDS in Black men who have sex with men and people who inject drugs, more research needs to be conducted on the impact of HIV/AIDS in our state as it relates to COVID-19, middle to upper income Black female students pursuing degrees in higher education, the impact of HIV/AIDS on Black females living in rural communities, and the impact of mass incarceration. Next slide, please. For my research, I retrieved categorical data in the form of age and income from the Georgia Department of Health, the USDA, and the CDC's Atlas Plus datasets. Next slide, please. I use Tableau because it is a user-friendly and offers a variety of aesthetically pleasing options that helps to quickly and easily tell the story of the data. I also attempted some analysis in RStudios. I processed my data using the following steps. After downloading the data, I pre-processed the data to remove irrelevant data. Then I integrated my data sets onto an Excel spreadsheet, arranged by county. Then I transformed the data so that Tableau could read it. Next slide, please. My study population was Black women. My independent variable was the prevalence of HIV/AIDS, and my dependent variables were race, ethnicity, geographic location, and median income. Next slide, please. This bar chart shows that Black females in Georgia have the greatest number of newly diagnosed cases than compared to other females of other ethnicities. The primary means of transmission for cisgender females was through heterosexual contact. Next slide, please. This slide shows my data visualization in Tableau. Next slide, please. And this slide shows my analysis and data visualization in RStudios. Next slide, please. In closing, my participation in the data science program this summer showed me the many possibilities of telling our community's story. Thank you to Dr. Washington, Google, and the AUC's Data Science Initiative for allowing students like myself the ability to explore how big data can be used to enhance human needs and well-being. In addition to the summer initiative, I also completed 2 other programs provided by the AUC, specifically Intro to Data Science and Equity Maps. And Ms. Dotson's discussion of social determinants of health was excellent and provided a list of real issues social workers need to address to empower our clients. And most importantly, I'd like to say thank you to Dr. Kenya Jones for encouraging me to learn more about data science and to all of the mentors listed that guided our research efforts this summer. Section 5.02 of the National Association of Social Workers Code of Ethics guides social workers in developing research. We are challenged to promote and facilitate education and research that contributes to the development of knowledge. We, as Black researchers, are needed in data science and vested members of our community. One of our presenters this summer shared that bias sometimes creeps into data science. Therefore, culturally relevant research centered in the Afrocentric perspective will allow us to tell the life experiences of our people and find culturally relevant solutions. Thank you, and this concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much, Naya. What a wonderful presentation. Next up, we have Mr. Shane Brooks.
Yes, this and Travis is going to be. We're both going to be presenting. Um,
Okay, I'm here.
okay, great. We can go to the first.
Um, we can't hear you, Shane.
Oh, okay. You can
Okay.
hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shane Brooks. I'm a graduating senior software engineering major from New London, Connecticut.
And I'm Travis Sherman. I am a senior software major from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yes, and today we're pretty much going to give you all a brief overview of discovery of artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. So pretty much over the course of our first semester of junior year, Travis and I decided to take discovery of AI. And so which the course entailed a, a research-based course that pretty much insect AI for all in Morehouse. And it was a 1 credit course um, that had labs, um, different courseworks, case studies, and also we was able to develop our programming knowledge with using Python, and we was able to intersect AI, machine learning, and work on data science projects as well. Next slide, please.
So, what are the positive impacts of AI? Right. So, first things first is like AI allows us to reduce human error and can also increase efficiency. But it also allows us to solve difficult tasks that humans really can't do. Right. So when you think about supercomputers, right? So like those systems are able to solve human impossible problems in a matter of minutes or maybe even hours. Next slide, please.
Just real quick, sorry to interrupt. Dr. Ballinger, are you able to show the slides full screen? You need to do it from Adobe Acrobat
Okay.
Reader. If you can, I can share my screen.
Okay, that's
Still missing. Is it
Yeah, these slides are showing awkward, and
still
I
missing
don't want
line?
anybody to miss this presentation. Would you like me to share my screen?
Yes, if you don't mind, Dr. Washington.
Okay. So you have to tell me what slide we're on.
we were on the next slide.
You got it. Take it away.
All right. All right. So, what are some drawbacks of AI, right? So of course, there could be and will be jobs lost due to the fact that AI will be able to do simple tasks for us that humans currently are doing. But the other thing is that people could become too dependent on AI, meaning that the basic essential things like that we do every day, we might end up kind of like forgetting those things, right? And the big thing, which is something that you will definitely learn, is bias. Bias is a constant uh, threat to AI, like that you have to mitigate and fight against as well. Next slide.
Yes, and the goals for the course. Travis mentioned a great point: biases. So we was able to dissect what bias looks like in the tech space. So we was able to look at implicit biases, explicit biases, and see how that can affect the Black community. And a lot of times, people, think machines don't have any type of bias, but we have to really look at who's programming these machines. And our professor, Professor Phillips, was giving us a great overview throughout the semester of what does that look like, how can we minimize that, and we can minimize that by increasing the numbers of Black applicants working at these big corporations regarding data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. And we have to be culturally competent when we're developing these technological advancements and systems for people, because they can perpetuate disparities in different communities if we're not ethical or aware of what the biases really are. Um, Next slide, please. And I just want to say I would like to thank Professor Phillips for really introducing me to data science and artificial intelligence. Um, since last year, I sparked an interest and now I want to pursue my master's in data science. So I'll definitely want to attribute Professor Phillips for sparking that interest. And I want to like to thank Ms. Butler as well and everyone who's listening here today.
Thank you for that amazing presentation. Next up, we have Ms. Kaylisa Estes, who's a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kaylisa Estes. I am attending Clark Atlanta University's Whitney M. Young School of Social Work. I'm in my final year of my master's program, and this is my presentation over contraceptive care and reproductive health inequities. Next slide, please. So the reason why my topic is important is because recently we've had state legislation and national legislation over reproductive health initiatives. And with contraceptive methods, it's important that we utilize those for preventative methods within various populations. So recent legislation as well as agency is important when dealing with clients, because agency allows the populations that need it the most to be able to utilize different forms of contraception. And then it also creates, agency also creates the ability for access in both educational aspects, class aspects, as well as health and poverty. And then if we assess contraceptive care within data science, we can reduce reproductive health risks, create safer contraceptive products, and create policy that encourages reproductive agency and importance. Next slide. Perfect. So, a small assessment of my demographic. I am assessing Black women ages 18 through 25 within Fulton County, Georgia. So, I am assessing contraceptive methods in healthcare in regards to this specific demographic. If you would like to go to the next slide for me. Some of the data points that I assessed within my project, and I'm still assessing as I continue research on this project, is the national demand for contraceptive services. So I'll be assessing poverty level, age group, and race in regards to contraceptive care, and then the support that organizations might need that utilize contraceptive care as a preventative method. So I'll also be assessing how they interact with various races and age groups and poverty levels as well. The county that I'm supporting right now is Fulton County. I'm assessing their need directly in the county clinics that are utilizing contraceptive care as a preventative method. And then an important data point that I would love to look over are the number of clients served at each county clinic. That will help me assess the need as well as the demand for contraceptive care and support. So next slide. An overview of my literature. This is just a snippet of the literature that I've reviewed for my project, but it's important to understand cost associations with contraception. So as we assess need and access, we have to understand how cost creates agency and access to these different contraceptive methods. And Kavanaugh and colleagues have a really, really good article over this if you would love to look at that. Also preferences. In contraceptive care, there's various preferences such as condoms, different forms of birth control, spermicides, as well as IUD, and things of that nature. Each preference has different like modalities as well as risks and harm. So we have to assess the need of contraceptive care in regards to those preferences as we're looking at these differing populations. And then contraceptive use by race. This also goes into contraceptive preferences. If I'm doing preventative measures, I want to ensure that the preventative measures that I'm presenting to the population that I'm targeting are utilized by that population and are a need that they would love to use in as we assess them. As we move forward to the next slide, I'll show you a little bit of my visualization. So this is my original visualization as I was assessing everything. And this is how I came to various percentages and importance. So for instance, one of my data points found that Black women in Fulton County make up 1/5 of all the clients with contraceptive needs in Georgia. So we make up a very large percentage of overall racial demographics that need contraceptive care. And then Black women, as we delve into the racial aspect and the gendered aspect, Black women below poverty level, ages 20 to 44, make up approximately 80% of all Black women with a contraceptive need in the state of Georgia. So out of all Black women within the state of Georgia, those that have socioeconomic difficulties are in the most need of contraceptive care. And then 80% of women in Fulton County make up almost 20% of the overall need. So this is important because researchers are able to see the socioeconomic aspects of a demographic in them being at the highest risk. And so this allows researchers to target efforts and programs towards this specific population with their needs and their feedback in mind. Moving forward to the next slide, future finishings. As I finish my project and continue with my research and data points, I want to be able to interpret the contraceptive need of women in both the state of Georgia and Fulton County. I really want to outline the demand that clinics have within the state, and then the overall demographic importance and relief efforts that are being issued towards these populations. And I will utilize that in various aspects of data science. So various visualizations, of course, various data points, and using RStudio to culminate and gather each and every data point. So the next slide just overviews my conclusion. I would always love to give thanks. That's something that we learned here at Clark Atlanta University. I would like to thank Dr. Jones for being my initial mentor within this project. She helps me so much. And I'd like to thank Anaya Parson-Hudson because we worked very closely together on this project. Dr. King and Dr. Patton, as well as Dr. Washington and Dr. Dodson for spearheading this project and allowing data science to be a part of my experience as both a graduate student and my overall research interests. So, and everyone else who made this opportunity possible, thank you so much. My next slide has my contact information on it. If you have any questions for me or would like to know more about my research. But I thank you all for listening, and you have a great rest of your day as you listen to the rest of my colleagues.
Thank you so much. What an excellent presentation and meaningful. All right, our next presenter is going to be Maya Phillips from Spelman College. Oh, well, excuse me. It looks like the order of slides actually has Mr. Miles Bachnight from Georgia Tech and Clark Atlanta.
Do you want me to go in and present then?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Miles Bachnight. I go to Georgia Tech, but I do my research at Clark Atlanta University, well, the illustrious Clark Atlanta University. So my project is on theoretical calculations of electronic and optical properties of pi conjugated molecules. Next slide, please. All right, so the field of organic electronics has branched off into a variety of applications, such as OLED TVs, that's everywhere, even in phone screens, organic voltaics, such as solar panels and stuff like that. And, the accidental discovery of this field is just very useful, and it's just in every different industry that you can think of. So the goal of my project was to determine the optical and electrical properties of a series of standard molecules using computational chemistry approaches, such as density functional theory using Gaussian 16 code. Next slide, please. So this is just a little bit of a background of the Nobel Peace Prize paper in 2000 that went over and kind of introduced us to the field of conductive polymers. So the three key takeaways from this paper that I thought that was important to bring up was, one, that when you dope or treat a semiconducting polymer with a halogen, it increases the conductivity of that semiconductor and allow for more current flow. Two, conjugation. It is a key component of a conductive polymer, which just means that within the molecular structure, there's alternating double bonds within the ring structure. And lastly, charge carriers. So the dopant, usually which is a halogen, it allows for conjugation of carriers in the form of holes. So there's little holes in parts of the structure, and every time that hole is filled with an electron, it helps to create a current around the whole structure of the compound. So next slide, please. So this is just an outline of the level of calculations that I've used. I've had to condense my PowerPoint a little bit to kind of fit into this time period, but so I have about 3 or 4 different calculations that I've used over this project last summer. And the purpose of this was not only to find the optimization or like the best arrangement of these systems, but also I tried to go in and calculate things such as excitation energies. So that's, what the energies at the highest the HOMA level and LUMA level, excuse me. And then also what about like different visualizations of these atoms that are going to increase efficiency of these atoms. So just for a brief overview, so optimization is used to find the best arrangement of this atom or a system. Time-dependent density functional theory, or TDDFT, excuse me, is a method used to determine the single excitation energies of a molecule. Natural transition orbitals, it is a type of calculation used to visualize and analyze electronic transitions. And then for density functional theory, it determines the methods of a single excitation energies of a molecule. And I did it with 2 different levels. So the top one and the bottom one, the only difference between these two is basically one, the WB, I forgot how to say it. I'm sorry, y'all. But the WB97XD, this one, it's more accepted in literature just because it shows more of the short and long range interactions within the system. And the other calculations, B3LYP, that one, it's kind of just there as like a different level of calculations, but it's not widely accepted within the field of computational chemistry. Next slide, please. And this is just an overview of my workflow. So for density functional theory in TDDF, I kind of did similar steps, but it was kind of different in how I did it. So first I started with my density functional theory. I created a model of a molecule in a program called Gaussian View from the skeletal formula of a molecule, which I found from literature. From each of these molecules, I prepared them for the 2 different types of density calculations, B3LYP and WB97XD. I submitted these calculations to obtain the ground state calculations for the HOMO and LUMA levels. And then I opened another platform called ChemCraft to actually get those levels, and I was able to analyze the data through that program. Then for the time density calculations, from the calculations that I got before from density functional theory, I got the optimized calculations and I put it in this type of calculation to get the excited states. And then from there, I was able to attain the excited energies and the oscillator strength from these type of calculations. So it was a couple different types of calculations, but it was kind of in steps to ensure that each level of the way, I kind of got a new piece of information as I put each piece into the system of calculations. So next slide, please. So on the left, I had to kind of condense again some of my presentation just for time's sake. But on the left, these are some of the molecules that I was using in consideration for. And a common trait amongst all of them, again, is the conjugated structure of these molecules. So, for the ring structure, so for one, BCP, it's about maybe 5 aromatic rings connected together. However, within each of them, the single and double bonds, they're alternated between all of them. So it allows for conjugation within it. And I decided to just put the graphs up of the molecules, just showing the difference between the HOMO and LUMA levels of each of these molecules. So at the top, I just put the ones from the TDDFT, no, not TDFT, it was the other calculation I can't remember off the top of my head. The density functional theory, excuse me, that's at the top. And then the time-dependent density functional theory, that's at the bottom. And again, I had to condense it for time purposes. So next slide, please. For the applications of this research, it can be in further OLED research. It can be in thermally activated delayed fluorescence. So it's another type of technology. And then something that I'm actually working on right now is spin orbit coupling calculations. Next slide, please. Ooh, well, I guess before I dip out, I would just like to thank Dr. Sehan and Dr. Ashokan for giving me this opportunity to for me to even have research. I really do enjoy the lab, and I'm excited to continue to be working with them. So thank you so much. You all have a good day.
Much for that excellent presentation. Next up, we have Ms. Carissa Jackson, who's a graduate student at Clark Atlanta University.
Greetings. I am a senior majoring in social work at Clark Atlanta University in my BSW program, so I'm not a graduate student yet. This summer, I have had the opportunity to participate in the Social Work Data Corps summer program under the mentorship of Dr. Ivis King. And I would like to thank you all for this opportunity to share my experience and research from my research project this summer. With that being said, which is an analysis of contraceptives and pregnancy in women 18 to 24. Next slide. So a little bit of course reflection. I did use Tableau, Yellow Dig, and Cognitive.ai. Tableau is a program that helps you data scientists see and understand their data. Yellow Dig was a forum that my cohort, all of us used to discuss our things that were making us very much have a hard time while we were doing our looking for our data, and just gave us a forum to really get to know each other and talk with each other, and just get advice while we were collecting our data. Cognitive AI was where we got all of our beginner level skills to work in R for later use. Next slide. All right, so the background and problem. So the issue that is to be addressed in my study is the impact that contraceptive access availability has on pregnancy in Georgia between the ages of 18 and 24. This issue affects recently graduated high school women to young women enrolled in college that may be unemployed or in careers, military, or even trade schools. Basically put, any woman from 18 to 24 is at risk of becoming pregnant due to a lack of contraceptive access in the state of Georgia. The consequence that will result from the continuation of this problem includes an increased probability that by the age of 20, a woman will live in poverty and a decrease in a woman's human capital investment in education and careers. Next slide. So my methods and point in general is that nearly 1/5 of women of reproductive age in Georgia are not covered by public or private health insurance, which is the third highest in the percentage in the country. Another point to address is the specific element of this problem that needs to be addressed is access to healthcare that provides education and services to demographics based on race, ethnicity, insurance availability, and urbanization. Another point is the issue to be addressed by this study is the impact of that the contraceptive active access availability has on pregnancy in Georgia. So the purpose of this study is basically to undertake a timely evaluation of the impact that contraceptive access has on women ages 18 to 24. And my research question was, does contraceptive access decrease the risk of pregnancy in women 18 to 24? With that being said, I would like to go on to some of the methods that I use to collect my data, which were used in RStudio. This is one of the actual illustrations that I had to make in RStudio for my project. And it shows that there is a very, very high chance that you don't have access to contraceptives rather than those that have access. Next slide. All right. And so next steps, my biggest next step is empowerment. And what that means is because the study of social work is based on the ideas of service, social justice, human dignity, and worth, the value of human connections, integrity, and competence. These principles provide ideals for all social workers to strive for. As a result, it is the job of the social worker, which will be me one day, to assist those in need and solve social problems. This problem being pregnant women from 18 to 24 and how it significantly changes their ability to be responsible and make great choices when they are in programs such as healthcare, military, or going into their career choices. And I would love to make a difference and empower those that are coming after me. Therefore, I will be advocating for others in class to be empowered to give data science a try and developing the skills to be a competent data science and social work. and the fact that it was just an amazing opportunity for me as a whole. In closing, I would like to personally thank the AUC Data Science Initiative, Dr. Washington, and Google Health for sponsoring the Social Work Data Science Corp this summer, and all you guys' hard work and dedication to the AUC. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. What an enlightening presentation. All right, and we have our final presenter, Miss Maya Phillips, who's coming from Spelman College.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya Phillips. I am a graduating senior at Spelman College Biology, and I'm originally from Massachusetts. My research project is titled Roads to the Top, Tracking CEO Career Trajectories and Coding for Race. This is a project I worked on during my time at the Summer Training Academy for Research Success Program at the University of California, San Diego. The principal investigator of this project was Dr. Mary Blairloy, and my primary research mentor was Catherine Crowder. I want to thank them for all their mentorship. Next slide, please. Racial inequality in the workplace is no new phenomenon. Complaints of microaggressions, unequal opportunity, and unfair treatment are regularly filed by employees of color in predominantly white work environments. To unpack this phenomenon, my research questions are: what patterns exist amongst the career trajectories of CEOs in top-earning US companies? Do these career trajectories differ by race? And what might my findings suggest about how race and racialization operate in the corporate sector? This research is important because across societies, the identity makeup of the wealthy elite rarely reflects the diversity of the nations and communities in which they operate. Especially in the US context, using preliminary research to interrogate why this phenomenon persists is the first step in moving towards a more equitable future. Next slide, please. So this research is a portion of a larger project that began in 2015. The 2015 Roads to the Top dataset already included detailed information about the career trajectories of 257 CEOs of the top earning public and private companies in the United States. These existing data variables detail CEOs' timelines of internal and external leadership transitions. And by internal, I'm referring to CEOs that climb the corporate ladder within a single company through a series of promotions. And by external, I mean people who were hired as CEOs after being recruited from an external organization. And on the slide, I've included the specific codes that were used to capture this trajectory. Working from the top of the ladder down, we have someone who just stepped directly into the CEO position at a company. Recent recruit refers to people who were hired into a company, one promotion away from the CEO title, and worked their way up to that position. The internal career describes those who have been in a company for 3 or more positions being promoted to CEO, and the last 2 account for CEOs who inherited a family business or who founded the company that they are now the CEO of. Next slide, please. So simply using my initial perception of CEOs' headshots, the subjects were either coded as white, Black, Latinx, Indigenous, Asian or Asian American, and ambiguous. Next slide, please. And of course, it would have been better if these individuals self-identified their race, because that is how identity is measured. But 1, that data was not readily available, and 2, because we are interested in matters of bias and racialization and how these operate in the corporate sector, it made sense to collect data on what race these individuals would typically be perceived as, rather than how they personally identify. And we also used a system called intercoder reliability, where my mentor concurred my ascriptions of race to each CEO before finalizing the data. Next slide, please. So looking at these 2 data sets generated by SPSS software, we see that there are actually more parallels between the trajectories of white CEOs and CEOs of color. There are 245 white CEOs and 12 CEOs of color in the data set. About 16% of both groups were hired as CEOs, and nearly 60% of both CEOs of color and white CEOs had an internal career where they worked their way up to a company before achieving the CEO position. And from the sample, white CEOs are about 2 times as likely to have a recent recruit background than CEOs of color, and white CEOs are also more likely to have inherited a family business versus minority CEOs. And in this sample, CEOs of color are actually more likely to found a business than their white counterparts. Next slide, please. Of course, this is an abbreviated version of this research project, so if you'd like to connect with me via LinkedIn and discuss these findings further, please don't hesitate to do so. And thank you so much for listening, and thank you to the AUC Data Science Initiative for inviting me to speak today.